Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to the Monday Night Raw review. Monday Night Raw tonight was from the Wells Fargo Center in Philadelphia, and the show just ended. The show was atrocious, as always. It was god-awful. What do we see tonight? We had the Alpha Academy, Chad Gable and Otis. They ended up taking on RKBro. How many times have we seen this? Once again, they went at it. And only the Raw Tag Team titles were on the line tonight. We had a six-man tag. Dolph Ziggler, Robert Roode, and Apollo Crews versus the Street Profits and Damian Priest. We had Seth Rollins versus Biggie, AJ Styles versus Austin Theory. We had Alexa Bliss returning, although she didn't return in the arena. We only just got a segment of her in a therapist's office. And they're still continuing to use Alexa Bliss's gimmick when she was still with Bray Wyatt. Great. Keep that gimmick on her when you have a guy who is no longer with the company. I don't understand. Why keep this gimmick for Alexa Bliss when Bray Wyatt or Wyndham Rotunda is no longer with the company? I don't understand. She should have went back to the goddess Alexa Bliss. But no, WWE is still keeping this gimmick that she had when she was with Bray Wyatt or Wyndham Rotunda. Unbelievable. But Monday Night Raw, like I said, the show was absolutely fucking atrocious. Absolutely awful. But let's jump right into the review. Monday Night Raw opened up tonight with Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman. They both made their way out. MVP and Bobby Lashley were backstage, and they were watching Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman make their way to the ring. So Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander end up approaching both Lashley and MVP. And Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander were happy about the Hurt Business being back together. Bobby Lashley ended up telling them, oh, the Hurt Business is no more. And that Lashley never said they were back together. And that they can get the hell out of here because the Almighty works alone. So that was that. But clearly the Hurt Business was no more. You could tell Vince didn't want to put Lashley and Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin back together. The Hurt Business has been finished. So Paul Heyman ended up getting on the mic. He does his whole, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Paul Heyman shtick. Introduces Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar then ended up getting on the mic. He ended up giving a shout out to the crowd in Philadelphia. He ended up saying that he can't believe we're back. And so then Bobby Lashley ended up coming out along with MVP. So we had Lashley and MVP. They end up marching down to the ring. MVP ended up getting on the mic. He ended up saying that it's his honor to present the almighty Bobby Lashley. So Lashley ended up getting on the mic. He ended up saying that it's an honor to finally be in the ring with Brock Lesnar. And an honor to share the spotlight with him. And this is a match that Bobby Lashley has been wanting to have. You know, he's been wanting to face Brock Lesnar for quite a while. And he's finally getting his match with him at the Royal Rumble. So a lot of people, you know, were like, oh yeah, this match with Bobby Lashley and Brock Lesnar isn't going to happen. This is a future dream match. You know, a lot of people were comparing this to a dream match with Sting and The Undertaker, which unfortunately that's not going to happen. A lot of people predicted, oh, we're not going to get this match with Bobby Lashley and Brock Lesnar. Well, it's finally happening, and probably Bobby Lashley is happy that he's getting this match with Brock Lesnar. So Lashley ended up saying that from one super athlete to another super athlete, it's an honor to look Brock Lesnar right in the eye. And with all due respect, for 20 years, Brock Lesnar has been ducking and running from him. Lashley wasn't even with the company 20 years ago when Brock Lesnar made his debut. He wasn't. So I don't know why Lashley said, oh yeah, for 20 years, you've been ducking and running from me. So Lesnar ended up saying that he doesn't have a clue who Bobby Lashley is until he met him at day one. And that's Bobby Lashley's fault that he didn't climb the ladder of success and enter the same arenas as he did, as Brock Lesnar did. So Lesnar ended up saying that MVP and Bobby Lashley are dressed really fancy. He ended up asking the thread count on their suit. So Lashley starts laughing. He ended up calling Brock Lesnar a comedian, that he must be a comedian. So Lashley ended up saying to Lesnar that at the Royal Rumble, when he beats him for the WWE Championship, and Lesnar starts his stand-up comedy career, he and MVP will be front row, because Lesnar is money as a comedian. So Brock Lesnar ended up saying to Lashley, oh, I am funny, and I am money. So Lesnar did a knock-knock joke. So he was going knock-knock, and Paul Heyman was like, who's there? And then he's like, Bobby. So Lesnar ended up saying the punchline. The punchline was, Bobby who? So Brock Lesnar ended up saying that it's impossible to beat him. And even more impossible to beat him when you're a Brock Lesnar wannabe. So he called Bobby Lashley a wannabe of himself. So Lesnar dropped the mic. Him and Paul Heyman ended up getting out of the ring. Lashley and MVP were staring Brock Lesnar down. And then all of a sudden, Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander ended up attacking Lashley from behind. Lashley started fighting both Benjamin and Alexander off. He ended up clearing Shelton Benjamin out of the ring. He ended up slamming Cedric Alexander to the mat. Lashley ended up going outside of the ring. He scooped Shelton Benjamin up. He rammed Benjamin into the ring post. Lashley then grabbed Cedric Alexander, launched him into the barricade, and then he ended up running Alexander into the ring post. So Lashley and MVP ended up making their way out, and pretty much that was that. But overall, this was a enjoyable segment here to open Raw. Hype for Brock Lesnar and Bobby Lashley. It's the match that we've all been wanting to see. Even, like I said, Bobby Lashley even wanted this match with Brock Lesnar for a long while, and he's finally getting it. So this is a dream match come true. And we're going to be seeing that at the Royal Rumble. So it should be a good match between Brock Lesnar and Bobby Lashley. And then we saw RKBro backstage. So they end up referencing Matt Riddle's NXT appearance from last week, where Matt Riddle ended up teaming up with MSK to take on Imperium at New Year's Evil, which New Year's Evil last week for NXT was a good show, in my opinion. So Orton ended up saying that he can do whatever he wants on his own time. And they lost the match last week because Riddle didn't tag him in. So Orton ended up saying that he is about to give Riddle some advice in case he gets lost out there. So Matt Riddle ended up interrupting Orton. He was doing some of his comedy as always. So Orton ended up writing something on his hand in case he got lost out there. Riddle ended up reading what Orton ended up writing on his hand. Riddle read it and ended up saying, "Tag in Randy." So Orton ended up saying to Riddle, "Good job." So Riddle ended up suggesting to Orton that both of them go out for some cheese sticks after their match, since they're in Philly. He ended up asking Orton if he's a Pat's or a Geno's kind of guy. So Matt Riddle sounded like he confused cheese sticks with cheesesteaks. So yeah, Riddle, it's cheesesteaks, not cheese sticks. So then they made their way out. Then we had the first match of the night, Alpha Academy versus RKBro once again. But the Raw Tag Team titles were on the line. But this was a meh match, in my opinion. Yeah, I gotta have that Mountain Dew Code Red. Good stuff. So we had RK-Bro end up making their way out first. So then, as Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, the Alpha Academy came out, Chad Gable and Otis. So the match ended up starting. We had Riddle going at it with Chad Gable. Gable delivered a quick takedown on Riddle. He was working Riddle over. Riddle ended up turning around on Gable. He ended up sending Gable out to the floor. Riddle then ended up hitting a springboard moonsault from the apron out to the floor, taking Chad Gable down. And then Monday Night Raw went back to commercial as Riddle and Orton ended up posing together on the apron. Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial. We saw Riddle was smashing Gable into the turnbuckles. And it showed during the break how Chad Gable ended up taking out Matt Riddle's leg. Gable ended up kicking out of a roll-up. He went back to focusing on Matt Riddle's leg. Otis came in, and Otis and Chad Gable were double teaming on Riddle in the corner. Riddle came back. He ended up countering a back suplex from Otis. He then knocked Gable off the apron. Riddle then did a floating bro, took down Otis. Orton ended up reaching out for the tag, and he ended up getting it. And Gable ended up coming in also. Orton ended up leveling Gable with some clotheslines. Orton ended up kicking Otis, ended up catching Gable with a snap suplex. So Orton ended up fighting Otis off the apron. He ended up going for the draping DDT on Chad Gable. And we had Gable end up going to the top. Orton ended up knocking his leg out. And Orton ended up climbing up, delivered a superplex to Chad Gable. Riddle was trying to get back on the apron for a tag. Riddle ended up rallying up the crowd to get behind Orton, tagging him in. Orton got back up. He ended up dropping back down to pound the mat. Otis ended up dropping Riddle at ringside. So Orton ended up dropping Otis on the apron after he missed the RKO. Otis tagged in, and him and Chad Gable ended up double teaming Orton. Otis ended up nailing a power slam onto Orton, and he went for the cover. And there you go. The Alpha Academy ended up winning the match, and they are the new Raw Tag Team Champions. I was shocked at the Alpha Academy winning the match. I thought RK-Bro would retain the titles. But now that the Alpha Academy are the new Raw Tag Team Champions, it doesn't make any difference. The Tag Team division still sucks. So, who are the Alpha Academy going to defend the titles against? Oh, Apollo Crews and Commander Aziz? The Street Profits? Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode? Still, the Alpha Academy win the tag team titles did absolutely nothing for the division. Because the whole tag team division on Monday Night Raw sucks. Same for SmackDown. Tag team division on both shows fucking suck. Overall, very meh match. So then we had Damian Priest in the backstage segment with the Street Profits. They were getting hyped up for their match against the Dirty Dogs, Dolph Ziggler and Roode and Apollo Crews. Yeah, that sounds interesting, right? So then we had Damian Priest and the Street Profits versus Dolph Ziggler, Roode, the Dirty Dogs, and Apollo Crews. So Street Profits end up coming out. Montez Ford and Angelo Dawkins. Monday Night Raw went to commercial. Then as Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, we had a promo from Bianca Belair, which she was saying that she's looking forward to the triple threat tonight, where the winner will get to face Becky Lynch at the Royal Rumble for the Raw Women's Championship. So she ended up looking forward to winning the match and defeating Becky Lynch at the Royal Rumble and going into WrestleMania as the Raw Women's Champion. So that's what Bianca Belair had to say. And then we had Damian Priest end up making his way out. Dolph Ziggler and Roode and Apollo Crews were already in the ring. So the match ended up starting off with Montez Ford and Apollo Crews. They ended up going at it. Ford delivered a drop kick to Apollo Crews. Went for the cover. Crews kicked out at 2. Dolph Ziggler ended up coming in. He ended up taking over on Montez Ford in the corner. Ziggler taunted Damian Priest with a super kick. He was teasing that. Ford turned it around on Dolph Ziggler, but Dolph Ziggler ended up rocking Montez Ford. He ended up going for a splash to the corner. Priest ended up tagging in. He leveled Dolph Ziggler with some right hands. Priest delivered a bell clap to Ziggler and a spike to the mat. Roode ended up running in. Damian Priest started unloading with some kicks. And then a spin kick. He ended up dropping Roode. Priest ended up knocking Apollo Crews off the apron. Priest delivered the stage dive to Roode in the corner. And then he did it to Dolph in the opposite corner. Roode then ended up saving Dolph from a suplex from Damian Priest. Ford ended up leveling Roode with a kick. So Dawkins ended up coming in. He ended up dropping Apollo Crews. Priest missed a kick on Dolph Ziggler, and he delivered a clothesline. So as Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, Apollo Crews had control of Montez Ford. Crews ended up pressing Montez Ford high in the air. He ended up dropping Ford down to the mat. Ended up going for the cover. Ford kicked out at 2. Apollo Crews ended up working on Montez Ford. In came in Dolph Ziggler, kept the offense going. Dolph delivered a drop kick to Ford. Ended up going for the cover. Ford kicked out at 2. Ziggler ended up going right into a cradle for another 2 count, which Ford kicked out. Dolph started grounding Montez Ford with a headlock. Commander Aziz was looking off from ringside there. Dolph was stomping on Montez Ford, ended up super kicking Damian Priest off the apron. Ford ended up blocking the famous surf from Dolph, ended up turning that into a sit-down powerbomb. Went for the cover. Dolph ended up kicking out. So Roode and Dawkins ended up tagging in. Dawkins ended up running on Roode, ended up knocking Apollo Crews off the apron. Dawkins delivered a spinning back elbow to Roode. Crews ended up running in. Dawkins ended up launching Crews with a big throw. And then he did a throw to Ziggler. We had Priest end up coming in. He leveled Apollo Crews with a kick to send him out to the floor. Priest ended up following it up, and he went for a powerbomb on the floor. And Commander Aziz ended up approaching him. Apollo Crews ended up getting back up. He ended up dropping Damian Priest with a kick. Ford ended up running in the ring. He ended up leaping out, taking out Commander Aziz and Apollo Crews. So Dawkins ended up fighting Roode off. He ended up hitting a spine buster. And Dolph Ziggler ended up coming from behind. Nailed Dawkins out with the zigzag. He went for the cover. And there you go. Dolph Ziggler, Roode, and Apollo Crews ended up winning the match. So that was that. Overall, another meh match, in my opinion. And then we had, look back at what happened on SmackDown with Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar, and Paul Heyman. We saw how Seth Rollins ended up facing off with Reigns to close out the show on Friday, and they had to put in the Shield music in there. And then we had Seth Rollins end up coming out after that recap package of what we saw on SmackDown on Friday. Seth Rollins made his way out, looking like Cruella de Vil with the jacket. Cruella Rollins should be his new name. Because I swear, he looks like Cruella de Vil with the jacket. The black and white. So then, as Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, we had a recap of what we saw earlier with Bobby Lashley and Brock Lesnar. Then we went back to the ring. Rollins had a mic in hand. Rollins laughs, the that. He ended up saying that he's in a great mood because the Royal Rumble is on the horizon. So Rollins ended up saying that he's excited for the Rumble. Not because of Brock Lesnar versus Bobby Lashley, and not because of both the men and women's Rumble matches, but because it is the night where he will become the new Universal Champion. So Rollins ended up saying, that's right, it will be the Visionary versus the Tribal Chief, the Visionary versus the head of the table, brother versus brother, Roman Reigns versus Seth frickin' Rollins. So we had Rollins saying, he was screwed out of his day one singles match with Big E. And did he get an advocate or a special counsel? No. Rollins ended up saying that he doesn't need a penguin-looking snake oil salesman to do his job for him. He took matters into his own hands. He ended up saying that a few things in life are certain. Death, taxes, and he will beat Reigns every time. So then Big E ended up making his way out. Big E had a mic in hand. He got on the mic. He ended up saying that this is incredible news. He's so excited and so thrilled for Rollins. Rollins ended up saying that he wants to know why. Big E ended up saying that Rollins is his favorite out of all the world title combatants at the Rumble. So Big E ended up announcing that he is officially entering the Men's Rumble. He ended up saying that of all the things he can dream or fantasize about, close to the top of the list is how he dreams about doing what he intended doing at day one. But doing that at the show of shows at WrestleMania, that is beating Rollins and walking out as world champion. So both of them started laughing. Rollins ended up saying that Big E can dream all he wants. He ended up saying that he's happy Big E is in the Rumble, but Big E doesn't stand a chance at beating him one-on-one. He ended up saying that they should test that theory out tonight. Rollins ended up saying that he doesn't know how he feels about that, and that he's not ready. Rollins was like, maybe next week, in a better town. So Big E ended up saying, let's not just do it tonight, let's do it right now. So Rollins ended up saying that Big E put him on the spot and called him out. Rollins ended up accepting the challenge. He ended up calling for a referee. Referee ended up coming out. So we had the match. Seth Rollins versus Big E. Which this was a decent matchup here. This was kind of an enjoyable match here between these two. So the referee ended up coming into the ring. Seth Rollins locked up with Big E. Big E applied a headlock to Rollins. Both guys ran the ropes. Rollins nailed a drop kick. Big E ended up coming right back at him. Big E ended up nailing a belly-to-belly suplex to Rollins. Big E ended up running into a boot from Rollins. Rollins ended up sending Big E out to the floor and nailed a suicide dive in front of the commentary booth. Rollins ended up running back into the ring. He ended up going for another suicide dive. Big E ended up rocking him at the ropes with a forearm. He ended up laying Rollins down on the apron. He hit the running splash onto Rollins as Monday Night Raw went to commercial. When Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, we saw Big E end up slamming Rollins face first into the commentary table. He brought Rollins back in. Rollins got up, kicked Biggie, ended up chopping him. Biggie ended up fighting back. Rollins ended up ducking Biggie, ended up grabbing him from behind. Biggie came back, slammed Rollins, launched him into the corner. He ended up catching Rollins for a big ending, and Rollins ended up sliding out, hit a chop block to Biggie, and then he laid Biggie out with a DDT. Biggie went out to the floor to take a breather. Rollins ended up running the apron. He leapt off with a flying knee to Biggie's face. He brought Biggie back into the ring. He ended up going up to the top to deliver another flying knee. And Rollins ended up covering Biggie. Biggie ended up kicking out at 2. Rollins ended up clubbing Biggie with some forearms. He ended up grounding Biggie with a headlock. Biggie ended up fighting up. And Rollins ended up chopping him into the corner. Delivered another shot to Biggie in the corner. Rollins ended up charging at Biggie. Biggie then came back, nailed Rollins with a Uranagi. And we had, at one point, Rollins ended up blocking a belly-to-belly suplex from Biggie with a headbutt. Rollins ended up charging at Biggie, but he ended up getting sent out to the apron. Biggie ended up running. He delivered a big spear to Rollins from the apron to the floor in front of the commentary table, which that was a nice spot there with Biggie running through the ropes, delivered a spear from the apron. Good spot there. So Monday Night Raw went to commercial. As Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, Rollins had Biggie grounded. Biggie ended up fighting up. He ended up slamming Rollins down to the mat. Biggie blocked the stomp from Rollins, nailed a overhead throw. So later on, we had Rollins end up going up to the top, hit a frog splash to Biggie. He ended up going for the cover. Biggie ended up kicking out at 2. Biggie ended up blocking the stomp from Rollins and powerbombed him. And he went for the cover. Rollins kicked out at 2. So Biggie ended up going right into the stretch muffler submission on Rollins. Rollins ended up fighting out of it. Biggie ended up coming from behind. Rollins was fighting him off with some elbows. Biggie ended up catching Rollins with a sidewalk slam. Went for the cover. And Rollins kicked out at 2. And there was a point where Biggie was climbing to the top to deliver a super big ending to Rollins. Rollins then fought him off with some elbows. So at the end of the match, we had Rollins end up dropping Big E, nailed the stomp. And Rollins ended up going for the cover. And there you go. Seth Rollins ended up winning the match. Overall, this was a decent matchup here, an enjoyable match. Good, wrestling from both of these guys. Like I said, I like that spot in the match where Biggie ended up, delivering that huge spear from the apron out to the floor to Rollins. So, but decent match. Then we had the promo for the Women's Royal Rumble, the Superstars that was announced on SmackDown on Friday. What an awful fucking list of women superstars for the Rumble. I mean, Summer Rae, the Bella Twins, Kelly, Mickie James, who was signed to Impact, which I heard they're doing this Forbidden Door, which allows possibly superstars from Impact to come in, because WWE has like this partnership with Impact. Watch, it's going to be a one-off. It's going to be a one-off partnership with WWE and Impact. What a terrible list of superstars for the Women's Rumble. Awful. So then we had Nikki ASH and Rhea Ripley end up coming out. Monday Night Raw went to commercial. Then when Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, Sarah Schreiber was in the ring with Nikki and Rhea Ripley. And they ended up saying that they wanted to make an announcement. Nikki ended up saying that they hear the challenge, Carmella and Queen Zelina Vega, to a rematch. Rhea Ripley ended up saying that's not what they talked about. They were supposed to come out and discuss the Royal Rumble. Sarah Schreiber ended up bringing up speculation on the future of their tag team. She ended up asking if the team has run its course. Rhea Ripley ended up saying that they've had their ups and downs. And then Nikki ended up interrupting Rhea Ripley. She ended up saying, of course it hasn't. So there was tension between Nikki and Rhea Ripley here. Nikki ended up saying that they're going to talk about the future of their team right now. She ended up asking if Rhea Ripley is thinking of breaking up. Rhea Ripley ended up saying that they've had a great run and that it's time to go their separate ways. So Nikki ended up saying that teaming brings out the best in each of them. Rhea Ripley ended up saying that she's probably right, but she's ready to venture out on her own. Nikki ended up saying that if this is about the titles, they will get them back. To which Rhea Ripley ended up saying that it's not about the titles. Nikki ended up saying that Rhea Ripley thinks she's better because she got pinned last week. Nikki got pinned last week. Rhea Ripley ended up denying that. Nikki ended up saying that she was thinking it. She ended up saying that she was doing Rhea Ripley a favor with this tag team. Rhea Ripley ended up saying that she's leaving because she doesn't like where this is headed. I think nobody likes where this was headed with them still as a team. So Nikki ended up yelling at her for walking out. Rhea Ripley ended up saying no, and that Nikki is making her really uncomfortable. So she was like, let's just say goodbye. Rhea Ripley offered her hand for Nikki to shake. Nikki ended up saying that if Ripley doesn't want to be our partner, fine. She can't shake her hand until Ripley looks her in the eye and says she still believes in her. So Rhea Ripley ended up saying that she has always believed in Nikki, and she always will, and hopes she doesn't stop believing in herself, and hopes they can continue being friends. So Nikki got all emotional. She ended up asking if they really can still be friends. Rhea Ripley then hugged Nikki. So Nikki ended up going to the ropes to pose for the crowd. Nikki came back to Rhea Ripley, dropped Rhea Ripley with a shot to the face. Nikki started unloading on Rhea Ripley, started pounding on her to keep her down. Nikki ended up leaving the ring. She was smiling at Rhea Ripley. And Nikki says, almost superheroes don't need any friends. So pretty much that was that. But this was awful. This was fucking terrible. Rhea Ripley continues to get buried. And they turn Nikki heel. I think they turned the wrong woman heel. I think Rhea Ripley should have gone heel than Nikki. But hopefully with Nikki being heel here, hopefully WWE drops this awful fucking superhero gimmick for Nikki here and goes back to the old Nikki. You know, how she was Nikki Cross. When her character had personality. But knowing them, they'll still keep Nikki with this awful superhero gimmick. She's almost a supervillain now. This whole thing was fucking awful. It was absolutely cringe-inducing. And God, this tag team between Nikki and Rhea Ripley is done. Thank God. And then we went to 24/7 title shit. When are they gonna fucking retire this title? Every time, like I said this before and I'll say it again, every time this title is featured, it makes the show a whole lot worse than it already is. So Reggie ended up approaching Dana Brooke with some cheesesteaks. Reggie ended up sensing that something was off. Both of them go to leave, and we hear R-Truth yelling in the background, and they walk up on the referee. R-Truth and Akira Tozawa were up to their antics as always. Tozawa was hiding in a trash can. Reggie and Dana Brooke end up running away. They threw their cheesesteak at R-Truth and Akira Tozawa, and it actually hit Tamina. She was furious at R-Truth and Akira Tozawa. Reggie and Dana Brooke end up escaping, and that was that. 24/7 shit is fucking terrible. I'm tired of seeing this on my TV. Retire this title and just burn it. Burn this title so we can never see it ever again. Like I said, every time the 24/7 title is featured on TV, it makes the show a whole lot worse than it already is. Enough of it. And then we saw Omos walking backstage. Reggie ended up running into Omas. Him and Dana Brooke were still running away. Omos ended up lifting Reggie up against the wall. Omos was yelling at him. Dana Brooke ended up running over, started yelling at Omos to put Reggie down. Omos ended up putting Reggie down on the ground, ends up warning him to watch what he does, because next week he's going to do a lot worse. So Omos ended up walking off, and that was that. So what are we going to get next week? Omos versus Reggie? God help us all. Fucking terrible. This was awful. And then we had Omos versus Nick Sanders. Before the match even started, we had a backstage promo from Doudrop on how she will win the triple threat tonight, and then go on to defeat Becky Lynch for the Royal Women's Championship at the Royal Rumble. So we had that from Doudrop. Whatever. And then the match started, Omos versus Nick Sanders. Squash match for Omos. This was fucking terrible. Omos, Great Khali 2.0. He is absolutely terrible in the ring. Omos, in the match, just dropped Sanders, started standing on his leg. He started picking Sanders up, tossed him around the ring. That was pretty much basically what this was. And then Reggie and Dana Brooke were watching backstage. Omos ended up grabbing Sanders by his face, delivered a choke slam. Omos covered Sanders with his boot to his chest. Omos ended up winning. Whatever. Omos is terrible. He's a Great Khali 2.0. And then we saw Edge end up coming out for the Cutting Edge. So he got a big ovation from the Philadelphia crowd. He got in the ring. He started posing on the ropes as Monday Night Raw went to commercial. When Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, the Cutting Edge already started with Edge introducing his wife, Beth Phoenix. And he ended up saying that her and him will take on The Miz and Maurice at the Royal Rumble in 2 weeks. So Edge ended up sending us to a video package with superstars commenting on Beth Phoenix. So we had that. It was a nice video package on the Glamazon on Beth Phoenix, through her career. So Beth got on the mic. She ended up addressing The Miz and Maurice and how her and Edge will finally shut them up at the Rumble. And out came The Miz and Maurice. Miz ended up sending us to a video package with highlights from Maurice's career, and ended up saying that Maurice and Miz will lay waste to Edge and Beth at the Rumble because together they are unbeatable. So they end up saying that The Miz and Maurice are unbeatable. This is awful. So Miz ended up ranting to the crowd about how everyone should be honored to be in Maurice's presence, and how Beth and Edge should be honored to be in the same ring as her. Edge ended up saying that Maurice is a former champion, and they respect her, and don't want to take away from her career. But Edge ended up saying his wife can deadlift a Buick, and she smashes people. He ended up saying that if he had to face his wife in the ring, he'd have the same look as Maurice right now. So Beth ended up having a few words for Maurice. She ended up wondering why she's suddenly quiet as a mouse now that she is back on Raw. Beth ended up saying that time for apologies has come and gone, and she's going to wreck Maurice at the Rumble. So Miz then ended up yelling back at Edge and Beth, and he ended up telling Maurice to tell Beth about how bad she's going to get beat. So Maurice ended up walking off. She went off to the back while the Miz was still running his mouth. So the Miz turned around. He ended up wondering where Maurice went. So Beth got on the mic. She ended up saying to the Miz that if Maurice is too afraid to show up for the match at the Rumble, she will take great pleasure in knocking Miz's teeth in. So pretty much that was basically how the segment ended, but this segment was awful. This was absolutely awful. Edge deserves better than this feud that he's having with The Miz. I mean, out of all the superstars that you could have Edge go against after his feud with Seth Rollins, you have him feud with The Miz. This was terrible. This whole feud between The Miz and Edge is awful. And then we had Kevin Patrick. Kevin Patrick was backstage with Austin Theory. Austin Theory ended up telling Kevin Patrick that he has another chance to impress Vince McMahon by facing AJ Styles. Theory went on to say that he talked with Vince earlier, and Vince reminded him of how good Styles is. He ended up saying tonight is different because he will beat Styles, and Vince will have no choice but to invest further in him. Kevin Patrick ended up asking Austin Theory if Mr. McMahon had any other words of encouragement. Austin Theory ended up saying Vince told him not to screw this up. So that was that. That was what Austin Theory had to say. And then we had the match, Austin Theory versus AJ Styles, which this was just a meh match in my opinion. Styles ended up coming out, and then Austin Theory ended up making his way out. Theory ended up posing in the corner. He took a selfie as Styles was looking on. Match started with Styles taking control. He was working on Theory in the corner. Styles ended up catching Theory with a backbreaker in the middle of the ring. Theory ended up turning around in the corner, started stomping away on Styles. He hit a Fisherman's Buster on Styles, and he went for the cover. Styles kicked out at 2. Styles ended up fighting up with some back elbows to Austin Theory. Styles ended up sending Theory out to the floor with a drop kick. Theory ended up coming back into the ring. He ended up ducking Styles and sending him out to the floor. So it was back and forth between Styles and Theory. Styles ended up leveling Theory with a sliding forearm. Styles delivered a suplex into a neck breaker on Theory. So Styles was looking to nail the phenomenal forearm from the apron to Theory. And then we had Grayson Waller from NXT end up attacking Styles, and the match ended in disqualification. So Styles won the match by disqualification. After the match, post-match, Waller ended up beating Styles down. Theory ended up coming over. He ended up thanking Waller. He took a selfie with Styles laid out on the ground. Styles ended up recovering. He ended up fighting Waller into the ring. Waller ended up retreating. So that was that. And then Kevin Patrick was backstage with Grayson Waller. Waller ended up saying that this attack wasn't underhanded, and that he was just giving AJ Styles a preview of what's to come when they wrestle tomorrow night on NXT. Because originally this match was supposed to happen at New Year's Evil, but unfortunately Grayson Waller didn't want to have the match, so they're going to have it tomorrow night on NXT. So Waller ended up saying that Styles is getting taken out by the Grayson Waller effect. tomorrow night. So that was that. We're going to see that match tomorrow on NXT. And then we had a promo from Liv Morgan on how she's going to win the triple threat match and, have her match with Becky Lynch for the World Women's Championship at the Royal Rumble. So pretty much that was that. And then we had Alexa Bliss. The Alexa Bliss segment here with Alexa Bliss returning, but it was only a segment where she was talking to a therapist in his office. And of course, Alexa Bliss still having her gimmick when, she was with Bray Wyatt. I don't know why they're still doing this with her. You're still keeping this gimmick on her when he is no longer with the company. I was thinking, they would put Alexa Bliss back as the goddess Alexa Bliss. But no, they still want to keep this gimmick that she had when she was with Bray Wyatt, when the guy is no longer with the company. So Alexa Bliss had a flashback to Charlotte ripping up Lily, and this therapist ended up asking Alexa Bliss how that makes her feel. She ended up saying, it makes me feel thirsty. So she's filling up a glass of water. She keeps pouring the water until she makes a mess of the water where the glass is already filled with water. She ends up grabbing the therapist by his tie, asking how it makes him feel. He ends up saying, not great. So Alexa was like, that's a shame, because she feels dandy. So she ends up started tearing up his office, saying if the first step is admitting you have a problem, then she has a problem. And then the therapist was telling Alexa Bliss, breathe, which she ends up doing. But she keeps tearing things up in his office. So Bliss ends up screaming out to end the segment. And that was that. But this was awful. This was absolutely awful. Main event. The number one contenders triple threat match. Winner gets to face Becky Lynch at the Royal Rumble for the Royal Women's Championship. Liv Morgan versus Bianca Belair versus Doudrop. So Becky Lynch was in the ring. Becky Lynch got on the mic. She ends up welcoming us to the big time. So she then ended up running down Liv Morgan, Bianca Belair, and Doudrop. And she ended up heading to the commentary table. She was on commentary for the match. Out came Bianca Belair. And then Liv Morgan ended up coming out. And then Doudrop, after Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial. So the bell ended up ringing. Doudrop ended up dropping Liv Morgan with a headbutt. She ended up going at it with Bianca Belair. Bianca Belair ended up dumping Doudrop through the ropes out to the floor. Doudrop ended up tripping Bianca Belair, pulls her out of the ring. They end up brawling. Liv Morgan ended up launching herself over the top rope, taking both Bianca Belair and Doudrop down on the floor. Liv Morgan ended up rolling Bianca Belair back into the ring, and Bianca Belair ended up running over Liv Morgan with a shoulder. Bianca was taunting Liv Morgan, and they went at it. Liv did a Hurricanrana takedown on Bianca, which looked pretty cool. Liv ended up taunting Bianca Belair, but she ended up missing the corner. Belair ended up delivering a shoulder thrust to Liv Morgan. Belair ended up mounting Liv in the corner, and Doudrop ended up running in with a splash, hitting Liv Morgan. It was back and forth between these three, between Morgan, Belair, and Doudrop. Liv Morgan ended up missing a back suplex, and Bianca Belair hit a belly to back suplex on Liv Morgan, but Doudrop came in with a double splash. Doudrop ended up scooping Bianca Belair for a Michinoku driver in the middle of the ring. Doudrop ran into a boot from Liv Morgan. Doudrop then blocked a hurricanrana from Liv Morgan, and she ended up putting Liv on her shoulders. She ended up slamming her face first onto Bianca Belair, went for the cover, and Liv Morgan ended up kicking out 2. Liv ended up fighting up, and Doudrop ended up splashing her into the corner. She lined up to do a corner cannonball. Liv ended up moving out of the way. She then jumped on Doudrop's back with a double stomp, and Doudrop ended up knocking Liv over the top out to the floor. And Doudrop ended up standing tall as Monday Night Raw went to the commercial. As Monday Night Raw came back from the commercial, we saw Liv Morgan end up bringing both Doudrop and Bianca Belair out of the corner. Doudrop ended up kicking out at 2, and she ended up sending Liv Morgan into the turnbuckles. Bianca Belair ended up attacking Doudrop with a spear, and all 3 women were down. You had Becky Lynch still on commentary doing her thing, and I forgot to mention, what was Becky Lynch wearing tonight with that coat? And she had 2 goats on the side of them. I'm like, who was dressing Becky Lynch? Is her husband Seth Rollins dressing her? Because you have Seth Rollins coming out looking like Cruella de Vil, and Becky Lynch coming out with 2 goats on the side of her jacket. And she was wearing glasses. She just looked awful with that coat. So we had Bianca Belair and Liv Morgan. They were the only ones in the ring, and they started brawling. Bianca Belair ended up ducking and rolled Liv up for a 2 count. Liv Morgan ended up going into the Rings of Saturn. She couldn't get it locked in on Bianca. Liv delivered some elbows to Bianca's gut, trying to get the Rings of Saturn hold applied. So Bianca Belair was screaming out, and Liv kept the hold applied. Bianca Belair ended up powering up, and she had Liv Morgan on her back. Bianca Belair ended up swinging Liv into a side slam. Liv got her knees up. Doudrop ended up coming in, and Liv ended up dropping her. But at the end of the match, Bianca Belair ended up hitting the KOD on Liv Morgan, and Becky Lynch ended up rushing into the ring to break up the pin. Becky ended up tossing Bianca Belair out to the floor, and Becky ended up going back to the floor, started staring Bianca down. We had a chase with Bianca and Becky around the ring. Becky ended up swinging at Bianca, and Bianca ended up decking her. She ended up kicking Becky in her gut. So Becky ended up tossing Bianca Belair over the commentary table, and Doudrop and Liv Morgan were the only ones in the ring. Doudrop ended up dragging Liv to the corner, and Doudrop ended up hitting a splash from the second rope. So she ended up pinning Liv Morgan, and there you go. Doudrop ended up winning the match. She is now the number 1 contender to face Becky Lynch at the Royal Rumble for the Raw Women's Championship. Post-match, we had Becky end up coming in. She ended up offering her hand for Doudrop to shake. Doudrop extended her hand, and Becky ended up slapping Doudrop. Becky ended up trying to go for the manhandle slam, and Doudrop ended up blocking it. Becky ended up retreating out to the floor quickly, and she looked surprised. Doudrop was staring her down from the ring, and that was how Monday Night Raw went off the air. Doudrop versus Becky Lynch at the Royal Rumble for the Raw Women's Championship. Who cares? Who cares? This doesn't make any sense because we have a heel in Doudrop and a heel in Becky Lynch. So it's heel versus heel. So who are we supposed to root for? I know technically we're supposed to root for Becky Lynch because a lot of people don't want to boo Becky Lynch even though she's a heel. But that's who I think the people are going to go for mostly is Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch, she's going to retain the title at the Royal Rumble. And so this match doesn't make any sense when you got 2 heels in there. This match was awful, in my opinion. What a horrendous show this was tonight for Monday Night Raw. Absolutely horrendous. But anyways, that's it for Monday Night Raw review. thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this review. Definitely give the video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, and I will see you all on Wednesday night, of course, for Dynamite. So until then, see you all Wednesday.